Hey, deserving listeners, the ultimatum. Let's see what happens.
Cat to wear the ring in that situation.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Maybe I'm just weird as shit. I don't know.
We knew that.
I don't know. Not that we would ever really do this before, but when we were boyfriend, girlfriend, if we got in a fight, I feel like it was easier to leave. But if we fight now and we're engaged, it's a little different. It's like,
Okay, so this is interesting. I predicted that they would be breaking up with each other, and we don't know that they didn't, but I didn't think that they would be happily together. She's saying, though, she doesn't want to marry him, or at least she seems to be indicating that. But, and right now they're talking about wedding ring, and she has a ring on every finger except for her wedding ring. And everyone's trying to get her to wear the wedding ring, and I don't think that is, if I were there, I wouldn't be, I'd just be like, yeah, it's your choice. And Antonio, it's his choice if he wants to be in a relationship with someone who has that position of, I don't feel comfortable wearing the wedding ring, or, you know, they're both adults, they can make choices. And it's, there's this weird compulsion that people have. It's just like, you could almost say it in a really negative way. It's just like, be one of us, come to our cult of wedding rings and marriage. You must conform. It is uncomfortable if you are not like us, you know? So sometimes I wonder if what I'm doing and saying are going to end up in one of those compilation comedy clips where so anyway, that's one way of putting it. Another way is that you know, people are really pressuring of her because they just have this weird belief that their cultural feeling, because it's unusual that they would get engaged and then she wouldn't wear the ring. It's also kind of a sexist thing, right? Of like, women need to stay in their place. They need to constantly advertise that they're with someone, because otherwise then they're some kind of immoral slut or something. You know, she doesn't want to wear the ring, and it does hurt his feelings. He acknowledges that, Antonio, but it's not enough to make him leave. And okay, you know. So we're also hearing, because I was curious, because that can happen, that when you're official and engaged is a step towards marriage, then for some people it can help with conflict, which does lend itself toward the hypothesis that I was mentioning, that she has a split off part of herself that does express to Antonio sometimes, and he sees it, and that's what he wants to be with, that is very dependent on him and very tender towards him and very in love with him, very needy of him. And that would lend itself to this hypothesis, because now that they are engaged and there's more of a commitment from society and from themselves, that part of her that is more needy of him and more wanting to be with him starts to kind of win the fight internally for her, because the other side of her is, I don't need people and I'm fine, and marriage is for chumps. And, you know, she talked about how she makes fun of women who will make sacrifices for marriage or will give up their prospects according to her in terms of career. They did a mashup of all the scenes where she talked about her business, you know, and it's fine that they did it, and it is kind of notable that she would talk about it a lot. But I've thought about this before, that when, you know, they have these 4 other dates that they repeat over time, and they also are meeting a lot of people, and they're in all these interviews, it would stand to reason that after a while you would start saying similar phrases, because you know, there's similar questions that come up and similar ideas that you need to convey. So I think any one of them, if you really looked for certain phrases, they would repeat. And then we have to wonder, why is it funny that she why is it funny to us or to the show or to the cast that she would say all those things? If she were a man, would we think differently about it? You know, she's apparently a successful woman. They talked about their businesses, and thank God Antonio is actually seemingly doing well in entrepreneur. It's almost like, I hate to say this, but it's almost like a fetish about entrepreneurship. As I guess, I don't think of myself as an entrepreneur, but I've been an entrepreneur since I was in my 20s. I've had my own business as a private practitioner, as a therapist, since I was 27, and I developed a successful therapy practice in my late 20s, early 30s. But I didn't, it was a means to an end. It was just like, I have to pay my bills. I have to pay my student loans. I have to survive. It was a pretty hairy situation in the beginning. I was significantly in debt from school, and the paycheck that I was getting from my first job as a therapist didn't even cover the interest every month. The paycheck was like this, and like 60% of my paycheck was going towards interest. So I was left with 40%, which didn't pay all my bills like rent and gas and everything. So I was going more into debt after, even though I was working, because of interest. And so I ended up working 70 hours a week. I worked as a full-time therapist, and I was a part-time professor, and then I had a part-time private practice. So I was working 7 days a week, and I was working really hard. And I paid off. The reason why I was able to pay off my student loans is because I was building this business on the side. Anyway, the way they talk about business, it's almost like it doesn't matter if they really want to do it, or if it's fulfilling, or if it's making a positive difference in the world, or even if it's making money. It's just like, I have all these businesses. And I don't know. It just kind of felt that way to me. It's really insulting to say that out loud, because I have no idea. I don't have the data. But aside from that judgmental, ridiculous thing I just said, she has a pasty business for breasts, which I don't really comprehend what that means. She said like a bra alternative or something. I think it's for when you're wearing strapless attire, but I don't know. I have seen my wife with things in that direction, and it was explained to me, but and it's not hard to imagine. Anyway, Antonio, they're celebrating that he has these businesses. He has car detailing or car repair or something, or car wash. That's what he has. He has a car wash, and he's starting to expand into more car-related businesses. And when I hear the way they were celebrating him, he's like, I have 4 businesses now. If he were my friend, I'd be like, well, are you fulfilled? Are they making money? Do you like it? Because I don't know about you, but 4 businesses, especially if it's not really what you're into, that's a lot of work and a lot of stress and a lot of annoyance, because you have to manage, several managers and employees and inventory, and it's it can be really not a preferable career. I'd rather be a goon at Microsoft than that kind of thing, depending, right? But maybe it is. Maybe it's very fulfilling to him. He's certainly meeting the goals that she has set for him, and I think he internally also wants these things. Well, I think he wants to be successful, so he must not be playing video games all the time, right? So, and maybe him being engaged actually frees him to be more secure in the relationship and less avoidant of life, that sort of thing. Maybe the show kind of kicked him out of that rut or something. So anyway, it's a good. I'm being a dick about the whole thing, but the two of them are seemingly doing really well. And I did hypothesize, that she might be like a Vanessa, where behind closed doors, and most of the time, she's a very warm, nice, considerate, loving, open person, with, some of the sprinkling a little bit of the things that you see on the show that might kind of be like, I don't know if I like that, but, it's not frequent. Everyone has their issues. And that he is a lot more mature and caring and compassionate and mature and emotionally healthy than he might come across. But their relationship just looks weird because it's not traditional, and she comes across in public like she's really arrogant and uncaring. But he knows, they know that they have a connection. I don't know. There's some signs that might be true, but who knows? In a few years, they might. And like I said earlier, they might have broken up 5 times between shooting the show and the reunion. but they're just not really highlighting that, which wouldn't be a horrible thing, but, would just be a continuation of their dynamic.
Okay, we're engaged. I can't really walk out the door. There's a different level of commitment.
And you like that feeling.
It is nice.
So would you do it? Would you marry this man?
It's just not top of mind right now for me.
Yeah, that's fine. I think that there's this compulsion, I think, for like, could be one of us, get married. It's fine. You feel for Antonio, but he's a grown man. He knows the deal, and he is free to leave. I think, certainly Roxanne's not controlling him. Well, I did hypothesize that there could have been a dynamic where there's a beating down of emotionally his self-esteem over time through their dynamic. But he's a grown man. He can make choices. He can decide to leave. He can decide to go to therapy to figure out if he has access to those feelings. He's not a helpless little worm or something. I don't know why I said worm. It wasn't on Vanderpump when, what was it, James Kennedy called Tom Sandoval a mustached worm. What did he say? I'm going to Google it. Vanderpump Rules worm with a mustache. Yeah, you're a worm with a mustache. It was a good line.
By the way, I am an ordained minister.
I'm not joking. He got ordained.
I can bless you and marry you here in the state of California.
Yeah, it's like, lay off. She just said she's not up. Why would you want to pressure someone into such an important decision? And Antonio, yeah, he's on the record as wanting to marry her, but I'm sure he doesn't want people to pressure her to coerce her, peer pressure her into marrying him. Like, just let people live their lives. What's it to you? What does it matter? What does it matter if Antonio and Roxanne get married or not? It has no bearing on anything. Doesn't matter to anyone else. Now, if you care about Antonio or you wish that the two of them were to have fulfilling lives overall, and you wonder if being married is a part of that. But, people can live fulfilling lives in all sorts of configurations. And it's certainly not very fulfilling to feel like people are constantly trying to get you to do something that you're not ready to do. It's like, just stop it.
California.
Antonio, would you marry her right now?
Yeah, I would.
Roxanne, would you marry him right now?
Give me no, absolutely not. No,
I'm not surprised.
no.
Well, I want to get Roxanne out of the hot seat. Honestly, congratulations, you guys, on the massive growth.
Yeah, I was like, no, Roxanne, say no. This is not like an impulse buy when you're going through the grocery store line and there's a candy bar and you're like, oh, okay. Or some trashy magazine, you're just like, yeah, fine. This isn't that. This isn't an impulse decision. This is something that you want to have 100% certainty for a period of time. In fact, I didn't comment on this, but I think it was Roxanne that said when they did get engaged, or maybe it was during the reunion, they were talking about how there's always uncertainty when it comes to making these kinds of commitments, like getting married or getting engaged. And I thought, no, there's not. Certainly there can be, but I didn't have any uncertainty about marrying my wife. There was no uncertainty. There was no, I suppose if you really pressed me, I'd be like, well, I can't predict the future. God knows. But there was no question. There was no hesitation. There was no, I didn't have any negativity or worry or anxiety about it or cold feet. And I'm pretty sure, I think my wife's even more so that way and was that way earlier than I was. I found out like pretty early in our relationship, she was like, yep, he's the one. And she just, she's a very loyal, locked in person, very stable. I'm more like, I don't know. And so, but by the time, we got married there and decided to get married, there was no hesitation. There was no uncertainty. It's okay if people have uncertainty, but you don't always have uncertainty. It's not inherent. I'm an old man, but I really don't like this trend that seems to be persisting of people wearing shoes with no socks, dudes wearing shoes with no socks. it was a trend in the 80s that was new. Like, I think Duran Duran kind of influenced people, and I went along with that trend when I was 15. And in Seattle, it gets cold in the winter, and I, fashion over function, and I wore my fashionable shoes from, what was that store called? Was there a J. Jacobs or something? Anyway, and my feet were numb by the time I got home from school. And actually, this one time, this guy bullied me when that happened, and I didn't even know the guy. He was a few years older, and we were just passing each other on the sidewalk, and he stomps on my foot super hard with these boots and pushes me down, and I'm just like, what the hell just happened? And when I got home, I just peeled my big toenail off, and to this day, it doesn't really. It's not really attached to my foot. Like, if I decide to cut my big toe, it'll go all the way to the stem, if you will. And incidentally, I've talked about this story before, but just very briefly to fulfill the full story. Years later, I saw him at a bar when I was in college, and I was with my friends, and he was with a lot of his high school friends. And again, he's a few years older, and I thought, well, I've grown since then, and I have more confidence. And I just walked up to him, and I said, "Do you remember me?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Oh, well, I went to Pine Lake Junior High, Pine Lake Middle School with you, along with Issaquah High School." And I told him the story. And I thought that, I don't know, we might get in a fight or some kind of verbal back and forth or something, and all he did was just look down at his feet, and his friends looked at him like, "Did you do that to this man, to this boy? What's wrong with you? Why would you do that?" And I thought, well, that went a lot differently than I thought it would. I mean, he was just like ashamed of himself. And now looking back, then I was like 21, but at 52 looking back, it's like, well, yeah, I mean, you don't randomly walk up to a younger kid and like commit violence on him for no reason if your life is going well and you're not experiencing tremendous trauma and difficulty at home, right? So, he probably had gotten to a point by his mid-20s that he was aware of that and very ashamed. It probably brought him back to a very difficult place in his life, Anyway, so yeah, I'm not a fan, because all I can think about, like when women wear shoes with no socks, they're often this sort of sandally thing. There's air flow. Dude shoes, there's no airflow. It's just all sweat and fungus and moisture and grossness just accumulating over how many times you're wearing those shoes. Socks serve a purpose. You change them and wash them. Plus, shoes aren't designed to be comfortable without socks. They have like leather folds, and socks kind of even all that stuff out. It just seems incredibly uncomfortable. And each to their own. But I'm not a fan. I'm not even a fan of looking at it. It just that's judgmental. That's not okay. People can dress however they want to. But I mean, I won't show you, but I'm wearing soccer at Adidas. These things. This is what I'm wearing all the time because I'm a Japanese American, and I have black socks on, black tube socks. I don't have any white socks. I buy the same. It's gold toe socks. I've been wearing them for 20 years. You can wear them with tennis shoes. You can wear them with dress shoes. And that's what I wear all the time. And I don't even wear my soccer sandals without socks. I'm sure that's like going way too far. I said too much. I'm sure if anyone was possibly with me, which I'm sure only a minority of you were, I just crossed the Rubicon, and you're all just like, I'm not going there with you, Kirk. But it's comfortable, and I'm old. I want to be comfortable. All right, well, that is for that episode. Everyone, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.